Hey guys, this is Dan from Fighting Giants Radio and TV, and I wanted to cover a quick segment because it was trending today about the Michael Brown shooting, the whole hands up, don't shoot case. And so I've been kind of analyzing this thing and going through it, and I always see things from a little bit different perspective as I've studied all this intra-political scene where there's a whole different agenda really going on behind what is presented to the public. So in looking at this entire case, I see two sides of a paradigm and a whole entire, it's like a giant game going on. So when I analyze this, they come out with this report about this guy not having his hands up in the autopsy report. How they determine that, I don't know. And then subsequently, the officer says he charged him and he got shot 9 times. Now, there was other footage that showed him possibly robbing a store, maybe stealing some cigarettes or something like that. So, and I've seen some other photos that he's potentially thuggish. I don't know the guy personally. I don't know him at all. There's a whole light of it that's being portrayed. I think he was about 18 years old. So maybe he wasn't the most upstanding 18-year-old citizen. You don't know how somebody's going to turn out, because sometimes at 18, you may be different than you are at 35. Regardless, to be shot, 9 times? And he's unarmed. Now, I want to put this into focus. Maybe I see things a little bit differently because I used to own a martial arts school, but I used to teach the police and military different tactics, different defense tactics. These guys get trained way better now than the police force in the 60s and 70s and 80s. So they know a little bit about what they're doing as far as defense. So, I don't know, maybe this kid was kind of big, but don't these guys carry tasers and all kinds of stuff and mace? So what I'm getting at here is shooting this unarmed kid is not an isolated event. If it was just isolated, I would say it was just, maybe it was a bad decision. But the problem is, every single day I get reports, especially video recording reports, showing the police force, some police officer in some state, doing something to someone, either someone unarmed, a citizen getting pulled over for a taillight being out, or mistaken identity, and suddenly, regardless of what that situation was, the video will show this person's entire constitutional rights being erased. And then maybe backup will show up, and then they support each other, and the whole thing escalates. And these weird cases are coming down now where they're trying to make it unlawful to film police officers arresting people or doing their work. And to me, if you think about this, why would someone want to make it illegal to film a police officer? A police officer swears an oath to uphold the law and to uphold the Constitution, which includes not searching and seizing somebody's property unlawful or without a warrant, and all these kind of crazy things that, if you get pulled over for a taillight being out, then suddenly they want to ask you questions about where you are, where you're going, can we search your car? That's illegal. That violates your constitutional freedoms. And now every single day something like this gets filmed and goes on the internet. And you're thinking, okay, so look, I used to be a fireman, so I support the police. I understand that I understand there has to be law and there has to be policemen, and there are really awesome and good cops out there. But for this type of thing where people are getting shot and for these illegal, unlawful removals of freedoms, the militarization of the police force, which I'll get into in a second, and the idea that these cops are almost acting like stormtroopers, like Nazi Gestapo stormtroopers, and shooting unarmed people, taking women in handcuffs and throwing them face first on the concrete, kicking them in the head, straddling women and punching them in the face. You know, the other day I watched one, what was the guy, 76 years old. He was unlawfully pulled over for what the officer thought was a state inspection on his vehicle, and he had dealer plates on it, and in that state the law is you don't have to have it inspected until, you know, it's sold or something like that. So the cop gets, you know, mad at him for whatever reason, handcuffs him, starts throwing him on the ground. He's 76 years old. He's slamming him on the ground and stuff like that. The guy's not even resisting arrest. So this is happening every single day. And like I want to say, I'm not against the police, because there's I have friends who are very good cops. But on the other hand, there are cops out there now who are starting to view the American citizen as an enemy combatant. In other words, you're not on their team. And if you're not on their team, and if you don't do exactly what they say, whether it's by the law or not, that constitutes a physical beatdown, even possibly getting shot. Okay, so the reason they don't want anything being filmed anymore, and I'm not saying police don't want it filmed, I'm talking about from the higher, there's something coming from the higher ups, passing this ideology down. It's coming from somewhere, this mindset, this whole genre of thinking that this is how things can be done. It's coming from the top down, and they're militarizing the police force now. In other words, they're gearing them up in helmets and Kevlar gear and M16s and whatever. They have total military gear. Now, the American citizen is supposed to have the right to protest, to overthrow a government if they think something's wrong going on. So why are the police forces being militarized with tank-like machinery and full military gear and black ops looking stuff and stormtrooper things? It's because from the top, someone from the top down is passing along knowledge that the American citizen is a combatant enemy of the state, which starts to show that somewhere at the top, someone is planning for a dictator type of takeover, and they know the American citizen would want to resist because the Constitution says that you should do this. And so they are creating an army, calling it police, creating an army with enough people who will resist the American people from stopping a takeover. So here's what a big problem is. Most people in the military, in the army, in the special forces and things like that, they are very patriotic type of people. They would not fire on unarmed American citizens. But as you can see daily, for some reason, the police force will fire on unarmed American citizens. And this is something I want you to think about. Somewhere along the line, the police force is getting information from the top down, passing on a type of mindset that some, not all, because like I said, there's good cops, and I appreciate the police force, but some cops within these organizations are getting information and accepting it that they are a type of stormtrooper, and the Constitution and the law and how they maintain their public image doesn't matter. and they're there to brutalize citizens and any resistance. To me, that would not be happening if they were afraid of losing their job, if they were afraid of repercussions, if they were afraid of getting caught, or if the public started to say, we will not accept this. But for some reason, from the higher ups and this ideology coming down, they don't fear that happening to them. And that's what's becoming kind of scary, because now the average person that I talk to does not view getting pulled over. Let's say you're just driving down the road and you get pulled over. It's not a sense of aggravation like, oh, my taillight is out. It's a legitimate fear that they're going to be pulled from their car and beaten and arrested for something silly, for something made up, or if the cop's being a smartass and they reply in a certain way, which I saw a guy in an airport. He was talking to the cop and he says, well, you're doing a stellar job. And just for saying that, he was tackled to the ground, beaten, and arrested. All right. A friend of ours, he was a chef. And so he gets pulled over. He's a chef. He has knives he carries around that's sitting folded up in a special thing in his seat. And the cop asks for his registration. So he says, okay. And the cop's standing right at the door. He reaches for his glove box. And the next thing you know, the cop's grabbing him by the hair and is yanking him through the car and is beating him and trying to throw him on the ground and stuff. Okay, this is just absurd, these types of things that are going on. So my whole thing with the hands up, don't shoot, irregardless of whether his hands were up or what was going on, there is a serious problem within the police force, and it needs to be corrected within the police force. If not, the public is becoming extremely aware and they're becoming intolerant of it, and it's going to create a problem for the good cops. So personally, I would like to see a police officer somewhere and say, hey man, great job, I really appreciate what you're doing, instead of looking at them as a potential threat to me. So I'm just asking, because I have friends who are good cops, I'm asking for all cops to police the police force and put a stop to this, because it's not cool. It's not cool to be thought of this way. I wouldn't want to be a police officer right now, and with these cops doing these things and having people starting to think disrespectful stuff about me. Anyway, that's my rant on that. This is Dan from Fighting Giants TV and Radio. I suggest you check out one of my books, either Reason to Believe or Fighting Giants, uncovering the whole conspiracy of what's going on in the world, and also in Fighting Giants about how to overcome and escape the matrix of this entire parameter and live a rich and full life. This is Dan from Fighting Giants TV and Radio. Glad you hung out. Bye.